Welcome to Home Care, Doors Open, where we discuss licensing, operations, and scaling your home care business. Whether you're just opening your doors or looking to unlock new doors to growth and success, this podcast is for you. Let's begin.
All right, hello everybody and welcome. This is Lucas Carroll from the Business of Senior Care. I'm back with another episode of our podcast, Home Care Doors Open. Today, super excited to welcome a guest on, Brad Wolfe, who's the founder of Sourced. Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome, Lucas. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Look forward to being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to jump in and learn a little bit about your company and to share with our audience. So to kind of start, would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background and experiences in the home care space, which is quite extensive, and then your company that you founded that we're talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So background is in the in-home care space. So started my career in it running a location of a franchise brand. Did that for about 3.5 years. And out of that, Sourced was born. I used to do kind of the background. I did our financials for that site. And other owners started asking if I could help them with theirs. And here we are today. So that was, we started officially in 2021. During that time period, one of the franchises we were working with in my local town sold, and I bought it. So I am owner and founder of Sourced, that we do bookkeeping, billing, payroll assistance for the in-home care industry, as well as owner of a franchise as well. So understand the pain points that go with both sides. Obviously, I have a deep love and respect for all that in-home care owners do. And then we see a lot through the financial lens, and that's what Sourced deals with.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of our audience are individuals that have just jumped in or are thinking about jumping into the home care space. And I'm curious on sharing with our audience your perspective. If you're thinking about getting into home care, regardless of where you are, what state that you might be in, and both from your experiences in owning and operating a home care agency and with your bookkeeping, what are some of the things that you would say about the exciting world of home care?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll look at this question from two angles, if I can. The first is obviously you have to have love for caring for people if you're going to get into this. It is a 24/7 business that is really unique in that way. And so if you don't love people and love caring for people, it can be a tough fit. So I think that's the first checkbox that I would always say has to be there. Then for my financial hat to put that on, I think there's huge opportunities to be made financially in the in-home care industry when you run an agency successfully. So there are pitfalls, of course, that can throw you off that path, but if you do it well and follow the model, you can certainly do well financially in the industry. So I think that's a huge draw for a lot of people, but the concern would be only seeing one or the other side and not being aware that there are two sides of that coin. You not only have to have that love for caring for people, but you also have to be able to run a financially stable business. And if you do, it'll be very rewarding. If you're missing one of those components, it will not. It can grind your gears a little bit.
Absolutely. And looking for a partner, if you're looking for a bookkeeping and billing and financial services partner as a new company or an existing home care agency, what are some of the things that you see that are really important when you're looking for that right partner?
Yeah, the fun part about this industry is the more you get into it, the more you realize how many people fall in love with it that are in it and have created companies to help with various pieces of it. So whether that's getting, licenses and credentialing in various states, whether that's the bookkeeping side or billing side or the marketing side, a lot of the vendors came out of the space and know how to market specifically for it. I think having knowledge of the market, because it's so unique in the scope of things, it's such a competitive advantage to have those people on your side and having people you can reach out to who know, hey, how can I navigate this? What have you seen here? So finding people with a background in the industry I've found can be a game changer. Probably the number one complaint for us on the bookkeeping side or why people come to us is they've used a local CPA or bookkeeping firm and they just don't know the industry and it's so unique. And so everything is a little off kilter, and finding that partner who knows it is really valuable. So yeah, that'd be my number one advice.
Nice. The payer sources that if you're new to the industry, you may not be aware of, but have an awareness of. But can you talk a little bit about kind of what payer sources do you encounter in the home care space, and then what can that do in terms of top line revenue for an agency, and then how can you integrate that? How do you help agencies to integrate that into their financials?
Yeah, so typical variety of sources would be private pay, which would typically be ACH, credit card, check. Somebody cutting you a check directly, or you running their account or credit card directly. Second would be long-term care insurance. And so there are varieties of companies out there that do it, and there's a variety of ways to do it, whether you get paid from the insurance company directly or the client pays you directly and you help them get reimbursed. Companies like Genworth and John Hancock that do it and cover care, long-term care insurance, huge part. Definitely want to understand all that goes into that. The VA is probably, for me, my favorite payer source. A, they pay really well. B, they pay really quickly, and that's a really nice combination. So obviously, outside of the benefit of getting to care for people who have served this country and care for veterans, working with the VA, getting credentialed with the VA, highly, highly, highly recommend. And then finally, there's Medicaid. Medicaid has, and this is outside of a couple other one-offs that I'll touch on in a second, Medicaid is really state dependent on what the reimbursement rates are, what the process for that state is to get paid on time, all of that. Medicaid for me is a yellow flag. I would say know what you're navigating before you get into that. Don't just jump into Medicaid willy-nilly. You're going to want to know what that looks like and what comes with that. How do I get paid? What are reimbursement rates? What are my requirements? All of those sort of things. For some people in some states, it's a fantastic option. For others, it's a margin killer and a headache. And so Medicaid would be that last one. Then finally, there are a lot of local programs that pay out, things like the PACE program or local area agency on aging, or I've seen Jewish centers that pay out, or local clubs or programs or whatever it is. Knowing those, finding those, you're going through your local RPN network to tap into those. Usually they help provide care for a portion of the community who qualifies, under their group or whatever it is, but can be really fantastic opportunities to provide care and get paid directly from that local organization.
Nice. So thank you for going through those. I think that would be really helpful to understand the different payer part. I'm curious on your perspective for, I guess all of them, but like private pay, VA, and Medicaid. How do you work with agencies or suggest how the frequency of your billing, weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, and then syncing that up with payroll from a cash flow perspective? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so every once in a while we'll have somebody who will buy a second or third franchise and say, Brad, you guys set this up your ideal way. And so I'll walk you through what that is, because that is the way that mine is set up. That's the way I recommend it. It is not the end-all be-all, and different states do have regulations about some stuff that would tweak this. Overall, though, I would set up twice a month billing on the 1st and the 16th. The 1st would bill the second half of the prior month, so the 16th through the last day. And then the 16th would bill the first half of that month, the 1st through the 15th. And have that be your cycle. Helps keep people in a consistent rhythm and having 2 bill days. There are other reasons in the bookkeeping world that make sense, so you can run your financials accrual, which is what we recommend. If you do weekly or every other week billing, it can mess up the accrual. It makes it more difficult to do. And so that would be A. B, I would line up your payroll with that. Some people who move to weekly payroll and you're off cycle, as you mentioned, then your cash flow, there are months where you have 5 payrolls but only 2 billings, and it can make cash flow a nightmare.
Hmm.
And so lining those things up, I find to be incredibly important, so that you have those consistent cycles that are coming, and it creates predictability, lines everything up, and helps you scale appropriately with your cash flow. Now, when people ask about weekly payroll, what I tell them is find a program. There are different ones, Tap Check, Immediate. There's these programs out there that give your care team access to their pay on a weekly basis. So they can still have that, but you can still do twice a month payroll. I would tap into a program like that versus switching your entire payroll to weekly. I think you'll find a lot of benefits of that. That's just my recommended. When you get into private pay and long-term care and all of those, again, I find that twice a month helps with VA billing. It helps with Medicaid billing. It helps navigate all those different things, keeps things clean within that month. You're not crossing over months with bill periods. So that would be my recommended setup.
Yeah. Thank you for going through that. I'm so glad that you mentioned about the weekly payroll for caregivers and like how that could look, because you do hear that. I hear that from agencies about the attractiveness of a weekly type payroll for a caregiver, and maybe that could be a benefit of a caregiver wanting to join an agency because they have access to their pay more on a weekly basis. But that's a great option for agencies to do that.
Yeah. So, for example, at my site, we do twice a month payroll, but we advertise that we can pay weekly because you have access to your paycheck every single week through one of those programs. So, to your point, you can still get the recruiting advantages and still get your team the financials help that they need weekly without sacrificing things on the back end.
Like it. I like it. I like it. I want to ask some questions just a little bit broader about, just based on your expertise and background in home care. Um, we're mid 2025 now, and as you look at, kind of the current status of home care and access to home care, what do you see, from a growth perspective, from how it's evolving as an industry over the next couple years in the home care space?
Yeah, great question. I think, they call it the silver tsunami for a reason. What we're seeing in the industry, the growth of people needing care, the fragmentation of, families used to live, I look at my extended family and everybody grew up within 20 minutes of each other and lived there forever for their lives.
Yeah.
Today, that world is changing with the remote work environment. People are moving to different climates that they prefer. And you're seeing where mom or dad live 2, 3, 4 states away. And you don't get to care for them in the same personal manner because you're not down the road anymore, which is fine, which is great. Like that's where these agencies come in and can help bridge that gap. So we have seen that be a huge pull to helping provide care. We happen to be located here in South Carolina, which is a state that's growing very quickly. Most of the people moving in are moving from the north, and most of them, if their parents aren't coming with them, still have parents somewhere else in the country that need that help and that care. So besides just, baby boomers turning 70 and 75 and needing that additional assistance, we're seeing people more spread out, which increases the need for care as well. So it's a great time to get into the industry. It has a run rate here. I mean, all the stats that you see, all the studies that you see, has this really massive potential over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And you're starting to notice the government take, I just was reading about some of the provisions, related to overtime hours, minimum wage pay for like live-in care, 24-hour care, and all this stuff that's coming out. It feels like the government is really starting to notice what the industry is doing. And I wouldn't be surprised, they've talked about different things like Medicare starting to cover pieces and all of that more and more. I wouldn't be surprised to see that continue as we go, as the government really notices the industry and the need there. So great time to get into home care, huge, huge potential and opportunity, and tons of people need the help.
Absolutely, absolutely. The complexity portion, I know you mentioned for the Medicare, there's a newer Medicare Guide program, there's Medicare Advantage, insurance options. Traditionally, when you think of home care versus like skilled home health has complex payers like Medicare and insurance companies that require a lot of credentialing, and I'm sure from financial services and claims and pretty complex environment. non-medical home care traditionally has been fairly straightforward, but can you talk a little bit about, I feel like that they're that they're navigating towards a more complex billing and claims and payer sources in the home care space.
You're spot on. The percentage that we've seen of it used to be, when I first got in the industry almost 10 years ago, private pay was such an overwhelming majority of almost every site's revenue. It was, 80% plus, somewhere in that ballpark at the time. You're seeing Medicaid play a bigger piece. You're seeing those local programs. You're seeing VA. You're seeing, as you mentioned, some of the Medicare stuff that's already come out. Well, with those comes an increased need to know how to do that billing properly. You're talking, you need G codes and S codes and all the different stuff to build those things properly. CMS 1500 forms, and how do we navigate all of this stuff, and how do I get paid 100% on time? So it's definitely creating complexities, as you said. They feel like they're merging together more than they've been in the past. And it feels like that's the direction it's going, as well as we see that private pay percentage drop some, and VA and Medicaid, all these programs percentages increase as people learn about the care and get access to the care and the benefits that come along with it. So it's created significant complexities, though, on the billing side. That have been tough to navigate.
Depending on, I'm curious because you see it from the back end there with those payer sources, different payer sources, of which I would agree, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, you have, if you look at the payer wheel for a typical home care agency, predominantly private pay. For the businesses that you work with in this space, not that it's not all the same, but what do you see from like a payer wheel percentage? Is there trends in where private pay sits versus VA and Medicaid, or is it totally different with all different agencies?
As far as, and just clarifying the question, just as far as like locationally, or just total payer source, that wheel?
Yeah, just the wheel. Like, if is private pay now more like 40% of the business or 60% of the business, and then VA is 20%? Is there any sort of trending, or is it just totally depend on the agency?
It does depend on the agency. We see such a huge variance in it. Now, I'll say this, from what we've seen overall, we track some industry metrics from a benchmark perspective, on a global perspective, and we continue to see the private pay percentage decrease, continue to see VA increase. VA today for most sites is somewhere between 10 and 20%.
Okay.
It's really hard to nail down. Some are 30, some are 2, but that's probably your most typical range. If you had a bell curve, that would kind of be the bulk of it.
Okay.
Medicaid is either a huge chunk or nothing, is kind of what you see depending on the state's and reimbursement rates. It's either 30, 40, 50%, or it's zero. But you're seeing those things, as well as those local programs, continue to increase. I would say VA 10 years ago was 5% on average, and today it's probably 15, where you're seeing it continue to move up as reimbursement rates remain strong. And then you're seeing more and more Medicaid access. Some states it's still not feasible, but every year some state is recognizing the need and making Medicaid more feasible for in-home care, and you're seeing a bunch of those agencies jump on and have a huge spike because of it. So depends on location, depends on all of it, but if I were to say just broad spectrum, if it was 80% private pay, 20% everything else 10 years ago, probably move closer to a 50-50 mark on the whole, maybe 60-40 private pay, but definitely shifting to more other funding programs.
Okay, that's really interesting perspective. Just to know that is a trend. Certainly, it's different for each agency in each state, depending on the reimbursement amounts. But just to see that shift over that decade of time period is pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah.
The last sort of question that I was thinking for the audience is just sort of end on a broad one with just your years of background and experience. If you were looking to get into the home care game, either on a franchise or an independent, what is how bright does the future look? How exciting is it as an industry? And do you need to come from the home care industry, or what type of people do you see succeed in this type of space?
Yeah, I think if I could draw up, to your point, perfect owner or someone who really succeeds is when they come in it's somebody who is willing and able to do the care side of things really well. And they care for people and they love on people and that's what they want to go build. And they're willing to go find the pieces to surround themselves to fill in the gaps that they're not as good at. The sites that think that they can wear all of the hats are typically the ones that you see hit a ceiling and get stuck there. While the ones who zoom, and create some real strong profit are the ones who bring some people in to help them in whatever areas that they're not as strong in. And so, for example, just, without getting through all of it, I believe in this industry as, a site, whether private or franchisee, can make anywhere from 18 to 25% in a profit. Now, but doing that, you have to have the right people in place. You have to have the right rate structure in place. You have to have the right team in place. You have to structure your expenses properly. That doesn't happen willy-nilly. So you have to be really intentional about the way that you build that. And so I think there's tremendous opportunity in the industry. I think you can build a legacy business in this industry, especially with the way that it's going. But you got to surround yourself with the right people that you can call when you get in a pinch, or call when you're needing some help with something, and they can walk you through licensing, bookkeeping, marketing, all the different things that come at you as an owner. But yeah, the ones that do it can be really successful, have a really great business, feel really good about the work that they do every single day, and rest their head on their pillow knowing, hey, I made some money today, and that's great, and I helped a lot of people in my community, and that's even better.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, that's a perfect way to end, Brad. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your services that your company provides, also your background and experience and expertise in the home care space. And I want to thank you, Brad Wolfe, the founder of Sourced, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Lucas. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it, sir.
If you found this conversation valuable, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Senior Care. We'll see you next time on Home Care. Doors open.